Political conventions like the one that just wrapped here in Chicago last only a few days, but there are historians in this country making sure that all the memorabilia lives forever. At both the DNC and the RNC, we've seen a sea of hats and pins and signs, some of which, believe it or not, are now headed to the Smithsonian Institution. And our senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe, an institution himself, explains which items are picked and which are not.
Yes, that's right. You know, I was just in there a little while ago. It's got that feeling of like a bar when the lights go up and the floor's sticky. And if you've ever wondered how they preserve these demonstrations of political party pride, well, we tagged along with a team who's been looking for some treasures to keep. Long after the balloons drop, the confetti flies, and the signs wave, political conventions live on, not just in memorable one-liners.
And we stand today on the edge of a new frontier.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
But also at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. There, visitors can see everything from pins and peanuts to boxes of mac and cheese and ketchup bottles. All of it produced and used at one time to win votes.
It really demonstrates a very active way in which individuals participate in the democratic process.
John Grinspan and Claire Jerry are political history curators. You could call them historical dumpster divers in hot pursuit of political memorabilia.
We've started since 1988 sending a crew of people to primaries, to caucuses, to conventions, to protests, to actively collect before it's garbage.
We first met Grinspan and Jerry at last month's Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. They came as guests of the GOP to track down items to help tell the story of 2024. Like these signs some delegates made when they quickly wrote J.D. Vance's name alongside Trump once the senator was announced as the running mate. One planned to donate their fast work. I mean, how neat is that you guys were doing something spontaneous here and now they want to document it for history?
That's actually what I appreciate about it, the most about it, the spontaneous nature.
They did it again this week in Chicago with the Democrats, scouring for shirts, signs, and other swag. Let's go. As we walked the floor, Grinspan spotted a hat he'd like to add to the collection.
We love those things that have history from the past, the present, and the future together. Those make the best objects.
Back in Washington, hundreds of thousands of these items are cataloged and stored at the museum.
And we have things like that going back to 1844 from the Whig convention in Baltimore, you know.
There's an at-home convention kit Democrats were sent 4 years ago so they could participate virtually during the pandemic.
You got your credentials and you got a little bottle of confetti, I guess if you wanted to throw it in your home while you were watching the convention online.
Old press passes, plenty of posters, and a homemade pineapple hat worn in 1996 by fans of Bob Dole. Get it?
But the hats are really useful because they're not manufactured by the parties. They really are an insight into the workings of one individual.
Jerry explains why they keep what so often would otherwise get tossed away. Why is it so important to preserve it?
I think the objects are really important because somebody used them. It's not just something they watched on television, but it's something they wore or they carried, and it meant something to them. So the Smithsonian puts a premium on the handmade stuff because they feel like that's the best demonstration. But then they look for the more distinct printed ones. For example, remember we were in Milwaukee and you saw those mass deportation now signs?
Yep.
They grabbed one of those because they said that speaks to the moment. This might, thank you, Joe, you know, explains that Joe Biden was dropping out of the race. Doug, because if his wife wins, he'd be the first gentleman. That might be a good example. And then Patty, our stage, she found these rejects in a reject pile, right? It was like a complete reject pile. Something about the coloring that the producers probably didn't like.
So they're pro-freedom, but they don't like the color of freedom in those particular signs.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. That's a great piece.